The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin. Despite the fact that our economy is renowned for operating in cycles of development and fall, we are aware that this phenomena just began in the past century. Prior to then, our economy didn't function under a structure that was wholly dependent on debt. These cycles were brought on by this growing reliance on debt as a driver of economic expansion. According to Dylan Leckler, who wrote The End of the Long-Term Debt Cycle and the Rise of Bitcoin, over the long run, productivity is the most significant factor in an economic system, yet the primary causes behind the erratic fluctuations in the economy are not those of productivity but rather those of debt and credit. The majority of the world's economies stopped using the gold standard and switched to the creating money without any assets to support it is a common activity. Governments now possess the power of limitless resources. The phrase, saving the economy, is used to justify the continued misuse of a power that has been used improperly in the past. By activities that really weaken our currency and eventually cause long-term poverty among citizens. Or so it used to be. In modern times, the same tools have repeatedly saved the economy. Rising debt and the money supply have brought governments and central banks to a point where they cannot go back, where they are left with no choice but to carry on printing this population decline and poverty. That was a long-term result of our system is now turning into a short-term result as a result of governments, like as the one in the United States, have increased the money supply by more than 40% in less than 2 years. The movie delves deeply into central bank operation specifics and the present status of their impact. Interest rates, quantitative easing, money printing, and welfare expenditure are some of the figures and indicators that are affected by them. Even if this acceleration is now apparent, some people have been watching from the sidelines and have already taken action. Governments, academic institutions, or think tanks did not develop the answer. It all began with a message posted on a website forum by a person using the moniker Satoshi Nakamoto. This individual, or persons, established a new type of money and distributed it to the globe by combining previously existing computer science principles. The remainder was handled by its strength, community, decentralization, and scaling potential. After more than 10 years, we now possess an asset with a value of almost $1 trillion that no one can shut down. It is a form of payment with strict limitations that cannot be altered and a maximum quantity of 21 million Bitcoin. Due to these two characteristics, it is both the most difficult and best type of money. The movie provides a detailed explanation of how Bitcoin functions, how mining operates, and the available scaling solutions. Those technologies, including the Lightning Network, enable Bitcoin's potential for development and widespread currency use. Contrary to popular belief, many of the scaling benefits of network effects for open networks. The network can be strengthened by actions taken against Bitcoin. Countries where Bitcoin is prohibited by law have experienced a price surge as a result of people rushing to get some after realizing its significance. The same outcome will be achieved by governments working on their central bank digital currency, CBDC. Additionally, these CBDCs do away with the intermediary role that commercial banks have traditionally played in connecting central banks with their constituents. On the one hand, central banks may now deal with the money in circulation without the assistance of commercial banks. On the other side, Bitcoin makes it unnecessary for people to use conventional banks. Commercial banks are compelled to promote for the acceptance of Bitcoin in this situation by providing services related to the asset in order to maintain their clients' interest. Given the aforementioned considerations, money managers are becoming more prevalent that have already entered the space or are thinking about doing so. It is seen as a hedge against inflation, a hedge against governments, and a bet on the financial future. Given the current situation, which includes financial markets reaching record highs and several data indicators indicating we can only anticipate that the markets will ultimately begin to decline given that we are approaching the end of our cycle. When this happens, the money leaves the markets to store cash or purchase bonds. None of these choices are rational in conditions of high inflation and low or negative interest rates on bonds. Meanwhile, a completely new financial market is now nearing a point of maturity in terms of its development. With an average price growth of 200% year since its formation, it is the fastest growing financial asset ever. One of the better trades currently available is this one. The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin is a movie that we have made an effort to compile all the pertinent information on our economic context, including central bank measures. In order for visitors to get a thorough knowledge of our current position, we will cover history, Bitcoin, and more. and have the knowledge necessary to decide what kind of financial environment they wish to live in going forth. The movie debuts on January 5, 2021, and is free to stream everywhere. Additionally, you may get the movie in article style, movie excerpts, all the data sources, and more. The present banking system will be converted to a purely digital one as part of the Great Reset. Government involvement in the financial sector is appropriate, but only when it promotes good governance. The epidemic has demonstrated to us that the central bank is free to print unlimited amounts of money. To increase their financial authority, governments aspire to introduce central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. There are still many who desire financial freedom, given that the amount of both gold and Bitcoin is finite, which explains why so many people use them. For a centralized currency to function, trust was required. But throughout history, central banks have frequently betrayed this confidence. Many things may be in jeopardy if the CBDC were to be utilized for international transactions. History has shown several times that centralized control may be incorrect. Because the CBDC is not a success for cryptocurrencies, its formation should not be praised. CBDC functions more like a credit card and is completely controlled by the banks. If you break the rules, you don't want the central authority to cut you off. Another Great Reset is being planned for the Bitcoin sector, but this one will be decentralized. I'll be honest, I have my doubts, if we desire freedom. However, I predict that the WEF will only use blockchain in a few areas, such as supply chain management, and do every effort to prevent granting them the freedom that comes with cryptocurrency. Digital currencies issued by central banks versus those issued by individuals might determine how the Great Reset plays out. If you find thick video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.